So welcome to the zFestival Guest Artist Interviews. I'm here with my co-director Shoshana Klein and Luke Damrosch, who is one of our guest artists at zFestival this summer. I know Luke as a fellow multimedia technician at Harvard University, but his work includes being an audio engineer and videographer in the greater Boston area, and he mainly focuses on acoustic recordings. He has given lectures at Tufts and MIT on music recording and sound design. Luke, it's great to have you here. How are you doing?
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your artistic history, how you got into music and recording, and what you're doing nowadays.
Sure. So I am from the Boston area, and I started out falling in love with the drums. And I also took a lot of classical piano growing up. And then in my teens, I got more interested in jazz and contemporary music and improvised music, kind of new music. And I did my undergrad at the New School, New York City. I mostly studied with jazz musicians and also some pretty serious sort of experimental music folks, sort of downtown scene type of stuff. And ironically, they did have also a recording program, but while I was there, I was still really interested in being a performer and didn't really take advantage of that. But I did get really interested in computer music and electroacoustic stuff, sound design. And so through that, I kind of slowly, like every year, got more and more knowledgeable about the technical stuff and more interested in recording. And so I'm pretty much exclusively self-taught as an engineer. But a couple years after finishing college, I really started to do a lot of recording for mostly for friends in the beginning, and then just building up my experience. And I did a lot of work as an assistant with more experienced engineers. So that's kind of a familiar paradigm from the jazz tradition of, learning from the masters. And now I work, as you mentioned, at Harvard, and I also do a lot of freelance recording, mostly classical music and a lot of like contemporary chamber stuff as well. Yeah, hoping to do more of that in the near future once things get back to some sort of new equilibrium.
Yeah. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you're going to be presenting on at zFestival, and maybe touch on what you hope your participants or our participants to take away from your talk.
For sure. So one thing I'm really passionate about as an engineer is trying to kind of get things right in the moment, in the room, with choice of microphones, choice of other equipment, the techniques that are used. And I think it's it's not a perfect analogy to compare it to photography, but I do think there's a lot of parallels where if you have everything set up just right, and things sort of look good, in camera, when you make that document, you need much less work later. And I think that's very applicable to music recording as well. And so I'd like to definitely focus on things that people can do at home, can learn about, can keep in mind to improve recordings if they're doing them themselves, but also just to be more aware of how the process works and how to take more control over the sound and not feel like it's sort of a crapshoot whether it turns out well or not, things like that, because there's a lot of agency that people have to make things, to tailor things to what they want and what they expect if they know a little bit more, and not to presume that everyone will know nothing about this. I'm probably going to get a little bit nerdy, but and go into some more esoteric stuff. But I think it's very interesting and worthwhile to talk about, regardless of the specific equipment, the specific situation. There's a lot of more universal principles and things to keep in mind. So definitely want to talk about that, and also some tips to help people improve their recordings if they're making them. Most people with less than ideal situations these days, whether it's in the living room or whatever. And also, I'm happy to talk about lots of things, happy to do Q&A, and hopefully people will have some questions. So, I'm happy to be considered as kind of like an open resource. If any questions come up, I'm happy to do what I can to answer. So hopefully we'll get some Q&A as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Luke. I know I, for one, am super excited to have you join us later this summer. And for our audience watching out there, you can make sure to check out our website, zfestival.org, and our YouTube pages to see when you can watch Luke's talk. So thank you so much.
Thank you. See you guys soon.